session 6 now, and we have in the last 5 sessions we have discussed all the three strategies. How do we formulate them? Number one was business strategy, and so we spent considerable time on the how to formulate business strategy, and then of course we switched over to HR strategy, and then training strategy. So last session we did the training strategy, and I think this is important because, as you know, formulating the right kind of strategies is a critical dimension of the management, critical work activity of the management, because if the strategy is not right, I think we may not be able to achieve our objectives. So I think strategy formulation is definitely very critical function of management. Um, so in the last session, we talked about the training strategy, and I'd like to quickly have a recap of that. So let me share the uh, screen. Oh, oh.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Sir, the last session I did request you to throw some light on talent strategy also.
Yeah,
You said,
yeah. So, yeah.
I mean,
Who
after
is
just in between if you find
who
some
is
time.
speaking, please?
This is
Yeah,
Sonal.
yeah. We can. What I'll do is I'll finish the today's session. Today's topic, which is implementing strategy. So I'll quickly recap and go to implementing
Right.
strategy. And time permitting, I will definitely take care of the talent strategy. If by chance we are unable to do it, or let's say unable to complete it today, we will definitely do it on the next session. So I will definitely
Right.
cover talent strategy in my course here. Okay.
Right. Thanks so much, sir.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So let me share the screen and move on to the. Okay. So this is today's session. And okay, so just recapping the training strategy, as we discussed, it's a mechanism which provides a tool to build competencies that an organization required in order to become the most competitive. Because normally in a business strategy, we have our main objective is to remain very competitive, and we want to have the competitive advantage. So what are the competencies required for a company to remain very competitive in the marketplace? That is what are the and training strategy is really aiming to build those competencies in the organization. So it's very clear. Uh, but we also discussed two prerequisites of building effective training strategy, and that was number one: it should be aligned to the purpose and the competitive advantage. It should align with the company's purpose and what is the business strategy. So one should understand that. That's very important. And the training strategy has to be aligned, because unless it knows what is required uh, for the achieving the business objective, it will not be able to identify those competencies and will not able to do that. Uh, second prerequisite is that the training approaches, whatever training we do, whatever solutions which we work out, that should be aligned to the company's structural and cultural context. So we spent quite some time on aligning our training strategy to the this thing. So if you recap figures which we use for the building training strategy. We started off with the company strategy, and it means that we must identify the business objectives. Business objectives means that it could be both goals like profit, increased revenue, productivity, or it could be also soft goals like brand, customer experience, culture, and so on. So these are business objectives which we understand. We have to understand that, and then we should be able to identify the results, performance results, which are necessary to achieve these objectives. For example, if our objective is increased revenue, then we know that we have to have higher sales, because higher sales will turn into increased revenue. And similarly, if you want to give customer a very nice experience about our products and services, then we must ensure that we have a least number of customer complaints and all. So these are the performance results which are there. Then, knowing that, we have to identify what are the roles, who are the which teams, which roles, which people are required to deliver this. And then we have to look at, for example, in this case, we know that salespeople, and depending on how successful their contact calls to the clients or customers are, how good they are. So that is what we have to understand. Similarly, if you want to give customer experience, good customer experience, then which is the support team which is carrying out that activity, they have to have the knowledge of the various uh, plat- platforms. So now we have to really identify the gap, and what is the gap in the competency level, and then work out the training strategy. The activity which you work out, this needs to be communicated to the concerned persons. It's very relevant and very important that each employee who is going to be part of the training programs and all that, he understands what are the training objectives, and how, if we meet those objectives, how uh, he's going to be unable to contribute to the business objectives, how he can be helped in order to contribute the. So this is important. Communicating all the training objectives are very important. So because it will motivate the person to undergo training effectively and really be serious about it. And then we design and develop training for learning objects. So this is what we have, and we also discuss number of different ways, because we said, okay, it should be aligned with the structural and cultural aspects, and we looked at various organizations having different kind of approaches. So there's a one conventional type conventional organization, which has got a very one way of looking at the training, and there could be a non-conventional, which is very agile organization. It would look at training in a very different way, that they may like to do on-the-job training, or let's say short cycle training, which is on demand, so on and so forth. So your company may be these are the two. If you consider these two as extreme, your company may be somewhere in the middle or somewhere. So I think we have to understand what is our cultural context, and based on that, we have to decide what really training approach we'll take, because then only it will be very effective. So this is all which we discuss in the building the training strategy in the last session. Now, I know that training, developing and formulating nice strategies, whether it's business strategy or a HR strategy or training strategy, is very important. But the real benefit to the organization comes only when it is implemented very well. So I think implementation, therefore, is extremely important. No matter how good your strategy is, uh, unless it is implemented very well, it will not bear the fruits of whatever strategy which you. So I think implementing a strategy is really extremely important, and it's so important. People say that even if you have not a so good a strategy, but if you are implementing it very well, you might beat the other rival who has got a extremely good strategy, but who's unable to implement it very well. In other words, implementing a strategy is is very important. But implementation part is very hard. Formulating strategy is much easier than the implementing strategy, by the way. Uh, so in implementing strategy, what you really do is you go step by step, and do all the activities which are required to be, which are demanded by that strategy. Go one by one. You will get number of obstacles on the way. You have to overcome all those obstacles, and then ultimately you will find the results. So implementing strategy is extremely difficult compared to formulating strategy. Formulating strategy is something which senior level people come into work. So they develop this thing. Maybe they get the inputs from the people and from the lower level people, but ultimately responsibilities of the senior management team. Implementing strategy is done by everybody. All the employees in the organization, they get involved into the business strategy implementation, for example. So that is where I think it becomes really tough to manage it. Implementation. So let us look at now other part which I would like to mention here is the whole process of implementing a strategy depends on the context, you know, of let's say business strategy. If you want to implement it, it depends on whether you are doing uh, cost leadership strategy you're implementing, or you're implementing differentiation strategy, or any other, or let's say even if you look at the globalization or corporate strategy. So implementing strategy cannot be a something which can be uniformly applied. I mean, some formula which can be uniformly applied to all contexts, all business contexts. Like the strategy which is there for low cost leadership is different from the differentiation, and maybe the implementation also will have to be done fairly differently. Similarly, if you want to implement uh, uh, a strategy, a business strategy in the midst of the financial crisis, that's going to be quite different from the strategy which you're implementing when the environment is stable. So you can see that. Very difficult to give you a kind of uh, formula or the approach for implementing a strategy which can be uniformly applied. However, there has been a lot of research and all that, and based on a lot of uh, studies done of the practical implementation of various strategies, that there are certain common steps, key steps, which are common in all implementations. So if number one, implementation of each strategy consists of certain common elements, and common steps which need to be undertaken if you want to do it successfully. So what we are going to do today is discuss those key steps which are required to be taken into consideration, which are required to be taken those steps for implementing strategy in a much more successful manner. So there are about seven such key components. And one is, of course, that we'll build a very capable organization which can really execute this strategy very well. We have to have the resource allocation properly. We have to have the um, uh, these supportive policies and systems. We have to have a operating and information system. We have to motivate people. We have to have a supportive culture for this thing. And of course, finally, and most importantly, that we have to have a inspiring leadership for executing a strategy. So there are seven steps, and we'll discuss each one by one in order to understand each step and how important it is. and what are the various other aspects of that step. So number one is building a capable organization, uh, which can really help the. Uh, so this means that the first requirement while executing a strategy is that we'll have to have an organization for executing strategy. That means, like supposing you are uh, doing a training strategy implementation, you have to have a training organization, huh? And which has to be equipped, which has to be staffed by a very strong management team, a very strong team of people who can execute the training strategy. So similar thing for the organization, business organization or HR. That means whenever we want to execute a strategy, we'll have to look at the people who are going to execute, who are going to be the key people to push forward all the strategic activities. Okay, so that, and they have to influence other people and all. So it's I mean, there's a very good author, you might have heard of Jim Collins, who has written a number of management books, and one of the books which is the bestseller is Good to Great. uh, and in that book he says, get the right people on the bus. That means whenever you are trying to implement any strategy, get the right people on the bus and the wrong people off the bus. Okay. Well, I don't know whether it will be possible for us to um, put wrong people off the bus, but times we have to carry those people also in the bus. But right people are very important. Yeah? In fact, Jim Collins is the one uh, who said that the company's most critical assets are not people. Do you agree with this statement of Jim Collins? He says the key assets. Normally, we say that our people are the key assets and all that. He says no, it's not. It's not right. The key assets are not our people. Do you agree?
Sir, key assets are the good people.
Yeah. So that's what he says. That key assets are the talent, are the good people, are the people who really perform, who can results. So he's the guy who talked about it. And so this guy says that means what is critical is we should have right people, and they should have good capabilities. Their competencies and capabilities should be good. So we have to ensure that we have people with the good capability. And also he said that when you are building that, when you're staffing the organization, you also have to look at the organization structure, which is important for this thing. So what kind of relevant competencies we should build into the organization. For example, for business strategies, if the business strategy is cost leadership, we should definitely have a superior cost cutting skills. We should have better manufacturing know-how, depending on what is the business context. Or if it's differentiation, then greater proficiency in product development. And we should be able to take out the new products to the market very fast. We should be the first arrival of the new products and all that. In case of HR strategy, we should have all the HR hiring skill, negotiations, all kind of skills which are HR skills we should have. One of the most important one is the communication skill as well. For training strategy, we should have uh, TNA skills, training near assessment skills. We should have the skills for designing training program and organizing and coordinating skills for really implementing those training programs and executing those training programs and all that. So all these things are is a prerequisite. The first thing, if you want to implement that, you should have a good organization. So that's important. Now, second step is about allocating resources. uh, Allocating resources to strategic critical activities. Okay. Now, when you are implementing a strategy, there are certain activities which are very critical for, uh, which really are the important key activities. And if they are not having adequate resources, then our critical activities will suffer in terms of uh, time or delivery or whatever. It will not be able to give results. So it's extremely important that we have to have we have to allocate resources properly to all the, at least to all the strategic critical activities. That is important. So um, in all the three strategy, for example, funding those activities is important. Uh, that means we have to ensure that we have the right amount of financial resources and a lot of other resources also that will be have. For example, if the training strategy is there, we must ensure that all the resources are available. If they are not, then we have to really arrange for them. So that is something very critical. So even if the we should have even the funds for strengthening the capabilities of, I mean, we have to train our people as well. So what we can normally do is we may have to shift resources from those non-strategic areas to the strategic critical areas. So non-strategic areas should be downsized, and we have to ensure that those resources which are there, they could be shifted. For example, our good people should be even shifted from non-strategic areas to the key functions. So in order to ensure that they're, so when we say allocating resources, we mean all financial resources, other physical equipment, and all that, and also human beings. I mean, the manpower also, we may have to shift people, and so that the idea here is very simple, that the critical activities in the strategies should not remain hungry. They should have all the resources which are required by them. So that's very simple. And so this is second. Number three, the step is establishing strategy supportive policies and system. Uh, what is the role of policies and systems in the company? Huh? Anybody? Why do we um, emphasize policies and systems?
Sir, actually, this provide discipline to any of the work
Yeah,
activity, and also give
yeah,
us a barricade a activity by through the rule and regulations.
yeah. Mm. What happens is it provides guidance, because policy will tell you how it's to be done, or let's say system will tell how it's to be done, or sometimes guidelines are there. It channels the behavior of people. You know, everybody is uh, is expected to with the policies and systems. That means you have people in the company who come from various organizations, and their background may be in different working in different environments. They may be working in different systems and also, but then when they come to our company, they have to uh, they have to comply with the company's systems and policies. Okay, and so that is, it is to channelize the behavior, as you rightly said, discipline. So this is something. And every time you are implementing a strategy, and let's say not 100% people agree to the way you're executing your strategy. Okay, there are a number of people, though our attempt should be that you explain them very clearly that this is our strategy and this is how we go about. But then there are a number of people in the organization, particularly in the larger organization, who think, no, this may not work, this may not, or we have tried this earlier and may not, it didn't work that time. So this so you have some people who resists the changes, resist the strategy which you have chosen. And so these policies and systems will be counteracting that tendency, so it will try to put everybody in line, because normally people don't like to be seen as somebody who is not complying with the systems and policies. So people will be pushed towards that. And then of course it provides a consistency, because the systems means that day in day out, whenever that activity is done, it will follow the same thing, so ensure consistency in this. So you see, the policies and systems are very necessary in any organization. And particularly when you're chosen a strategy, you may have to also change certain systems and policies in order to suit your strategy. Okay, so that is also sometimes done. So if your policy is something but it doesn't suit your strategy, then you may have to probably change the policy and then inform everybody and ensure and sell it to everybody in order to get uh, uh, their agreement, their consent on this one. So this is because ultimately, when the strategy has been chosen, then all policies and systems should be aligned with that. Okay, so uh, if existing policies and systems are pretty okay, that's fine. But if the strategy requires some modification, do it, and it is very necessary. I can tell you, there is a company you may have heard of, Nissan, which is a automobile manufacturer, car manufacturing company. And at one point of time, it was doing very badly. Though it's pretty old company, which is and had a good name in the market. Nissan car was supposed to be good, but there was a period. It's a Japanese company. There was a period when the company was not doing very well, and the company's board got a new CEO. And then the new CEO came, he found that people were not very result oriented. Yeah. The people were not result oriented, and he had to change certain HR policies, particularly the performance appraisal, reward mechanism, and all that, in order to bring little more result orientation in the organization. So that's what his part of his strategy was, ultimately, to make the people more result oriented in order to improve the performance. So this is something required to be done. So okay, so let's move on. So we'll go to the next one, which is installing operating and information system. So uh, it's very critical that your operating systems, I mean, it is definitely required, because particularly in a business strategy, operating system should be good, and you should be able to take care of uh, new environment. I'll give you example of the airline mechanic. Now airlines in the new environment, they have they online reservation, and they put a lot of IT into their total value chain, in the sense that all the accurate and expeditious baggage handling system is all done by IT, because and so ticketing and reservation, everything. I mean, as much IT they can use in their operating systems, they are using it. And uh, the idea here is that when you are executing a strategy, you have to be equipped with all the relevant information all the time about the strategy execution. So you should get, so that you are in full control of what's happening. And in that, I think all these executors, implementers, they use IT today. That means support system means online data system, internet company, internet, e-commerce, so it's totally by IT. And what kind of data you need? For example, customer data, operation data, employee data, all kinds of supplier partner data, financial performance data. in fact, all these things, and today technology is making it possible to have it on your fingertips, all the data, and which can help you in taking the right decisions. So uh, this is very important aspect. So if you must ensure that when you're executing a strategy, that that you have a very robust information system available in your company, in your with you. So in order to this thing, so monitoring information effectively can yield a superior performance. Okay, so for example, in HR and training strategy, I think you should be able to computerize and have information about computerized system, all of them. In fact, today all attendance system, leave management system, compensation payment system, everything can be fully computerized. And then I think and then not only that, you have a extremely robust HR information system, which can have all the data available to you on your fingertips, even on mobile. So that's something which is so strategy execution has been made fairly easy and convenient by the information system, and you must definitely have a good information system available to you. Uh, okay, coming to the fifth point. Fifth point is rewarding people, or let's say motivating people to execute their strategy well. That is now a tough area. Tough area in the sense, motivation, as you know, is very difficult. Motivating people is quite difficult. And why is it difficult? Anybody can answer that. Why is motivating people difficult?
Because
In fact, motive.
Because
Huh?
meeting the
Sorry.
expectation of each and every individual is really difficult for HR in the paradigm of
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, and why everybody has
And sir,
different expectation, right? So
Because
no two individuals are alike, they're all unique. So if you have 10 individuals, you have 10 unique kind of people, in the sense that they all have different expectations and they all get motivated by different stimuli.
right, sir,
Uh,
because people are coming with a different kind of mindsets and behavior, and that
yeah,
attitude
yeah,
actually motivate them for different things
yeah.
they would
Even
be
even
expecting
the
as a reward.
yeah, even the twins who come from the same egg, for example, they are different, you know. So they also are different in number of ways. They are different. So
and sir,
this is sorry.
motivation like that we are taking the shower or bath every day, sir. So motivation everyday stimulation is required. That is again very difficult.
Yeah.
So
So the
it's
same
also
per
depends on the connect. Somebody might have the different kind of set mindset and behavior, and the
yeah.
person who is giving the motivation or who is inspiring the person, that connect
Mhm.
develop. So if different mindsets and different kind of connect has to be developed in order to create that connection.
Yeah, that's right. And same person, I like supposing you know that this guy gets motivated by this stimuli, but
Yes, sir.
in the next day or after some time, that may not work. That
Yes,
particular
sir.
stimulus may not work, and he
Yes,
gets
sir.
motivated by something different. So you can see, and that no wonder that motivation is one of the most researched topic in the field of management. If
so
you,
would
uh,
excuse me. So
yeah.
would the Maslow's hierarchy of needs also play into
Oh
motivation?
yes, 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 yes.
Because
Maslow's hierarchy always gives you some idea about. It
what
depends
are the
on
needs?
what level of the
Of
Maslow hierarchy a
needs,
person is. Yeah,
needs.
Exactly.
Yeah,
yeah,
different
Right.
yeah.
types of
So
needs.
that's why I'm saying that it is one of the most researched topic of management. If you Google the word, if you put a motivation, you will get about 60 million hits on that. And I mean, a lot of PhDs have been written on that, and so on and so forth. So that means this is something which is, yeah. So, however, in a strategy implementation field, to win employees commitment and ensure that they are committed to um, give the good results in your strategy implementation, motivation is extremely important. uh, so and you have to use both monetary and non-monetary incentive schemes, right? So what are the monetary rewards which you can give to them? What are the any what are the monetary schemes for motivation? A number of you are HR people, so
Yeah, sir. First of all, the variable pay came into the in last 5-10 years, comes
yes,
into the same category,
yeah. So
right?
that means variable pay means that you're linking their pay with the performance which they have delivered, right?
Right.
So you are giving them variable pay which is based on their performance, because that is one. So that means sometimes you give bonus,
Yes.
sometimes you have also stock options, ESOPs,
ESOP.
and number of monetary
Different kind of
Incentives.
incentive schemes, or it comes into the same.
incentive
Incentives
scheme.
are there,
Yeah,
sir.
yeah. Incentive schemes is a
Cash
very
there.
very common kind of a thing, particularly production workers. If they give higher output, if they show you higher output, then you give them certain incentive, that monthly incentive or hourly
Pharma
or
sale
whatever.
as well, sir.
Yeah. So see, that's what somebody said. The best way of motivating people is money. So if you give them more money, you can probably get a more kind of an output, more production, more performance, more productivity, and all that. However, there's another rewards which are there are the non-monetary rewards. And what are non-monetary rewards? Which doesn't when monetary rewards have got management normally is quite careful in giving motivational monetary incentive schemes, because it goes from their kitty. It reduces the profit to that extent, right? So there are non-monetary awards.
Sir, Pawan Mishra again.
What could be the
IDPs could be,
non-monetary awards?
yeah. Sir, IDPs could be into non-monetary
Yeah.
award or
Certificate trophies.
appreciation given to employees.
What is RDP?
IDP, I think, individual development plan. Sometimes we propose to good performers. That is
Yeah,
again,
individual development. Okay,
yes,
okay.
that could be into
Yeah,
non-monetary.
it is a motivational.
Right. And second is
Yeah.
appreciation
Uh,
letters and awards.
yes.
The flexible
Certificate.
timing.
Certificates, sir.
Flexible timings. Yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
flexible
Yeah,
timing,
flexible
childcare,
timings is also.
scholarships for the
Yeah,
employees.
yeah,
Certificates, trophies.
yeah.
Sir,
Yeah.
performance bonus.
A bonus is a monetary.
Performance
Even
bonus.
If a performance bonus also
promotions,
is
sir.
a
Even
monetary
promotions.
reward, because you are giving them you are spending money for that, no? So it giving them money. So those are monetary, but the non-monetary awards which
Promotions are there,
are
sir.
there, huh?
Promotions, additional.
Yeah, promotion, so opportunity for advancements, recognition, appreciation, praise, they seem to be quite powerful also. If you are genuinely recognizing, genuinely appreciating somebody, goes a long way in motivating people, particularly if you are giving appreciation in public, or let's say in front of a lot of his colleagues and families and all that. If you appreciate somebody, it makes a lot of difference. It can really motivate him to do this thing. So number of times organizations arrange certain functions where they invite more people, their family members also, and give the rewards to the performers, super performers, or let's say those who have done very well. So, but these also are quite quite motivating. Huh? Even some people have CEO's club, and you give membership, and that's a great. And people keep craving for doing better and better in order to become part of the club and all that. So, there are a number of ways, and one can be very innovative in identifying the what kind of rewards. But one of the very key scheme is, of course, the performance reward system based on the performance outcome. So some performance linked incentive or something which is there, which is quite this thing. And if it is done properly, if it is designed properly, it can be very effective way of doing, because everybody is interested in getting more and more money, and if they know a direct linkage for getting more money with their performance, they would like to perform much better. So this is something which a large number of organizations have introduced this scheme.
Sorry, what is
So, for
stock
example,
awards?
if you are
Sorry, what is stock awards? Stock awards.
is- stock awards are the ESOPs. That means employees are given certain shares of the company. Okay,
Okay.
so let's say if you do perform very well, then I will give you 1,000 shares of the company. So I'm not giving you money as such, but I'll give you shares. And then they lock the period when you can encash them. Supposing you can the company gives you 1,000 shares, but you cannot go and sell it in the market. You can only sell it after 1 year, or let's say after 2 years,
Time frame
after
is there.
3 years. Time frame is there. So yeah, you can only encash it. So this is a very powerful mechanism for retention of people. So if you want to retain your high performers, you can say, okay, I'll give you 10,000 shares, but you can only encash them after 5 years, let's say. So for 5 years, like 10,000 shares means they are really worth lakhs of rupees, supposing, depending on the share value. But then you will not be able to encash them. You will encash them only after 5 years. That means 5 years you have to serve the company.
Be with them.
So
Be with
this the shares ESOPs are very, very effective in retention of high performers. And of course, they also are. The idea here is that you are not shelling out money. The company is not shelling out money directly.
Okay.
So that
Thank
that
you.
is normally private companies have been doing quite well and on this account. So this is
Thank you.
so reward system should be really designed to genuinely or generously reward those achieving objectives. That means those people who are achieving the objectives, achieving or they're completing the critical activities of strategy very well, they should be rewarded generously, and the good scheme will deny rewards for those who do not achieve. That means, I mean, one need not be very this thing, oh, poor chaps. So, in fact, rewards are given only if you achieve results and not for your efforts. Supposing a person comes back and says, I was there in the office till about 12 o'clock midnight, and I used to work very hard, but the results are not there. If the results are not there, you put in a lot of efforts, then you are not eligible for the reward. You are eligible for the reward only if you have achieved the results. Huh? So the formula of the work done, if you remember your physics 101, work done is equal to force into distance, right? So no matter how much force you have put, if the distance is zero, then work done is zero. So that's what. So no matter how much efforts you have put in, but if the results have not come, your incentive, your reward will be zero. I think that's the kind of a thing. That means you need not come back with any excuse for not delivering result, and if there's a result, then you get this thing. So reward is for results and not for the effort. So this is something which always helps in motivating people to give their best in the strategy execution. Okay, so this is motivating is a tough thing, and everybody uses his own mechanism, and all those various theories of motivation, you know, like uh, McGregor theory, and then let's say Maslow's theory and whatnot. All there are number of theories, and then depending on which appeals you most, which you can use. People do use it. Next. Next step, which is again very critical and very difficult also, is creating a strategy supportive culture. Uh, that is, you know what culture is, what an organizational culture is. Anybody can, in a sentence or two, tell me about what the culture is, organizational culture. What do you mean by culture?
Sir, a culture of a organization defines the values what actually company is taking care of with the due objective and goals of the company.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Good. Good. Good.
So,
So
Any
for
others?
basically how
example,
you
if
treat your
some
people.
company has integrity, ownership
Huh.
as a well into their values,
Yeah.
so that will define the culture of the organization. That
Values. Yeah.
how they are taking care of the company and where they would like to be into the.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's the shared values is definitely a and beliefs, and the way people interact and with one another, how they approach the work, all this is part of the culture. So you have some visible aspect of culture, which is the ritual, ceremonies, symbols, stories, language, and some which are not visible, values, beliefs, and basic assumption as to how you interact with people, how you treat people, and all that. And it is manifested uh, in terms of your official policies, procedures, because policies and procedures are also depending on culture, and culture also and these also will determine the way people behave with each other. Some traditions which are coming on and all that, attitudes and behavior, peer pressure, organizational politics, how it is, that also gets influenced by the culture. And how you approach your people's management, how do you teach your people, how do you approach the problem solving, and all your relationship with even external stakeholders. So I mean, very simple. If you go ahead, if you visit a company for the first time, and you approach the reception, and you ask the receptionist, okay, I want to meet, let's say, head of HR. The way she responds and will give you some idea of the culture of that organization. If she says, do you have an appointment, or if you what do you want, why do you want to meet, and then um, uh, for this you don't, or whatever work you say, okay, this cannot be done here. I mean, if she tries to brush you off, that is one. Other way, other receptionists is say, okay, you want to meet, if you have not taken an appointment, I'll talk to him, and so on. And she makes you comfortable, makes you sit there, maybe offer a cup of coffee or tea also while you are waiting, and so on. That, so you get an idea of this particular place has got a different culture. And when you are waiting, that time you see number of employees going here and there, and if you find that all are looking very tense and all that, there's no smile on anybody's face, then you get the idea of that culture. So I think culture is something which you can always feel, and more you interact with the company, more you come to know about that organization's culture, so and it's so powerful. It's so powerful that a person coming and joining an organization from different culture, he may or may not be able to adjust in that culture also, if it's very very different than what he is used to. So culture is extremely important. it is also a control mechanism. It's because it is the operating system of the company, or let's say DNA, you know. So it's a culture acts as a very important control because it controls the behavior unconscious. It's something like if you have certain value system, your own sanskar, you wherever you go in the world, you follow all the your actions and decisions follow whatever your sanskars are, whatever value system that have been imbibed with you. Similarly, I mean, I can tell you a very small incident. IBM has been my dream company when I graduated 50 years ago from IIT Kanpur, and I wanted to join IBM. Of course, I mean, I could never join IBM, but why it was my dream company? Because I used to find that um, IBM employees are very disciplined and they are highly customer focused people. So IBM leadership always knew, because all the employees, they have been inculcated customer responsiveness as a value in their minds, that the leadership was very sure that their computers, which are very worldwide spread, and if anybody in the remote location, any of your computer IBM engineer is located there, that customer in that location, they don't have to bother about, because they know that their customer, their engineer, IBM engineer will look after customer. So it's a huge control mechanism. So you can ensure that all your customers will be taken care of, because you have ingrained that customer customer focus as the value in their people. So it's a very important thing. And um, so you can definitely have a high performance culture. You can inculcate that. And the example which I was telling you a little while ago about Nissan, this thing, the new CEO who came to take the company out of the woods, for example, he was amazed to see the kind of a culture which Japanese organization was having, because people were having so much respect or fear from their seniors, that in the meeting, when the senior person is available, none of the junior fellows will open their mouth. Even if they have ideas, to speak it out. And he was finding that in that company, no good ideas were coming. People will just agree to what the senior person is saying. There, the promotion system was based on seniority. Merit was not the key criteria. So if you're senior, you will be promoted, you will be heard, and so on and so forth. And uh, so this culture was not conducive, was not enabling his strategy of transforming that to a high performing organization. So what he did was to change the culture, and which culture, changing the culture is extremely important, because it requires a completely different framework for culture change. You have to identify what change you want to bring in, and then what new behavior should look like. Then you have to talk to the people, convince them how the new behavior, new culture, new way of doing things is going to improve performance. Then also revolve the policies and all that. Then reward those people who are already agreeing to, or who are complying with the new way of doing things, and punish those people maybe, or let's say sidetrack those people who are not doing that, and keep on interacting, communicating those changes. And it takes long time, by the way. So we discussed in our business strategy that a culture becomes an ally to a strategy execution. So this is something, because it's very important, and that's why. So if you have to ensure that whatever strategy you are trying to implement your organization culture should be. So when we talked about strategy, we said that strategy should be aligned to the culture, right? Or let's say values and all that. But after you have finalized your strategy, then whatever comes in the way of executing that strategy needs to be changed. Even if it's a culture which is coming in the way, then you have to probably change that culture. Okay, so that's how the strategy culture relationship could be there. That means you normally formulate strategy which is based on your culture, and that too those aspects of culture which you feel are sacrosanct, huh? which which you always like to uphold, those value system which you always would like to uphold, no matter whether you are making profit loss or whether you're going down. But certain values are so critical for you, so sacrosanct for you, that you will not like to change, and your strategy should be aligned with those aspects of the culture. However, once you have finalized the strategy and when you are executing it, if any aspect of the culture which comes in the way, naturally the your strong values will not come in the way. However, any other culture aspect which comes in the way, that you have to change. So in Nissan change, the way people looked at their seniors, in a sense, they changed the way that people started giving ideas in a meeting where seniors were also present, you know. So that is a kind of a change. The uh, seniority did not remain as the criteria for promotion. It became a merit or meritocracy was the key criteria for promotion. So that is the change which ultimately that new CEO brought about. And so that's important. Finally, last one, which is the ultimately, as you say, last but not the least, this is one of the most critical, that if you are in charge of implementing the strategy, uh, then you have to exert the inspiring leadership. You have to be a very, very inspiring leader. In order, you have to really, and lot of all your team members will look towards you as far as your leadership is concerned. So in this, I'll say what is inspiring leadership, and I have given here 5 key roles which you may have to execute in your leadership. One is communicate strategy very well. The case for change, why you are bringing that strategy, what is the case for change, why you are bringing out strategies, that's something we have to communicate, and try and build consensus. That's the first step. And then stay on top of what's happening. Be know Always know what's happening in the thing. uh, Put some pressure for achieving good results, bring some urgency in the whole thing, motivate people, which is, as a leader, you have to be very motivating. And finally, that personally lead this change process, if there's any changes to be done or not. So let us discuss each of these points. When it comes to communicate, what as a leader you are supposed to be communicating to the people when you are executing any strategy? Number one, vision. What is that strategy is aiming towards? What exactly you want to, uh, what is your destination? What do you want to achieve? Huh? And then how you're going to achieve strategy, why you're doing the case for change. It's very important. No strategy gets executed by release of an office order. Okay, from tomorrow onwards we'll do this. We'll execute this strategy. It doesn't work. It doesn't work in the organization where people are supposed to be getting involved into the strategy execution. They want to know why this strategy, what is this it's going to achieve, So all this thing, the case for, if you're, all strategies make certain changes. So what is, and people resist changes. Everybody resists changes, as all of us know. So we have to sell our strategy, convince them, build consensus. I know that 100% people will not buy it, will not be aligned to what you are explaining. They always find, some people are always there to resist, but at least majority of them should be able to support you in your strategy. And that is something which is very, that means you got to communicate to the people. Communication may not mean that you, I mean, again, I go back to a Nissan case. The new CEO was not a Japanese. He was half French and half Lebanese. But when he went to Japan as a CEO, he was able to communicate very well with all the employees without knowing the language, by the way. That means of course, he must be having an interpreter who can communicate, but people understand. Uh, Language is not all that critical to communicate your thoughts and strategies and ideas and all that, but people should be able to buy it. So it is very important. Each leader, if you are a leader in your group, or if whenever you achieve a leadership position, you make sure that you improve your communication ability. Communication is a most important thing as far as leader is concerned. and and this is something you can't delegate to somebody else. You cannot go and talk to your team and say, okay, team, I want to communicate something to you. Since I'm not a good communicator, here's my colleague who's going to communicate to you. It doesn't work. You got to do it yourself. Got to do it yourself. So if you're not a good communicator, I can only suggest you a 3-pronged action plan for becoming an excellent communicator. And that is communicate, communicate, communicate. If you keep on doing it again and again and again and again, over a period of time, you're going to become a good communicator. So communication is definitely the one of the first thing to influence and motivate people to start with. So that is something which is important. Second role, which again you have to perform, is stay on top of what's happening. You got to have a formal and informal sources of information coming from your domain, which keeps you aware of all the things which are happening on the strategy execution front. You must know. You must talk to as many people at all levels. Talk to people. If you're training a strategy you're implementing, you must talk to those trainees who are undergoing the training program. You have to talk to even the facilitators or the instructors, talk to your heads of department, their colleagues, and so on. Talk to people in order to know what. So that is something. There is a word called MBWA. Anybody knows what stands for MBWA? No, it is management by walking around. So its meaning is that if you're the leader, if you are a person in charge of strategy, you cannot just afford to only sit in your room and do that. You have to walk around. Why walk around? So even if you have a corner room, you're CEO and you're executing the strategy, you please go to the production shops, go to the field, go to the market, talk to customers, talk to your frontline salespeople. And if you are very innovative differentiation, you talk to R&D people. Again, talk to. In other words, you have to be aware of it, observe situation firsthand, monitor operating results regularly. Okay, regularly you have to monitor, and the periodicity depends on the your uh, your strategy, how much time you get feedback from the customers. Also, in a business strategy, watch competitions of rivals. So be on top of the what is going on. Keep an eye always. Now that's very critical. That's critical. Third is putting constructive pressure on achieving good results. What happens whenever you are executing any strategy? Initially, a lot of momentum is there, but after some time, things become little. The momentum gets weakened slightly. People tend to relax and tend to be little not as serious as they were in the beginning. So create a sense of urgency. Always, I mean, you'll find that all good strategy implementers, they always are having a sense of urgency that we have to do this by this time. We have to expedite this. We have to do so. Sense of urgency is very important. Mobilize organizational energy behind operating excellence. You have to set very high standards, high benchmarks in order to make people achieve higher and higher level of excellence. And so always raise the bar, as I say, so that people start keep on struggling. You have to have nice measures of your progress. Periodic review is very much required. Get to the bottom. Number of times when you review about a strategy implementation, you will find some people coming with number of reasons for delays. Uh, this could not happen because so and so thing did not take place. Or let's say, if I could not do this because the material did not come in time. All these kind number of delays, which number of excuses they come out with for the delays and all that. And every time you keep on asking why did it happen, why did this happen, why did this happen. So if you ask that why 5 times, you will get to the bottom of the um, reasons for delay, what really did. So I think if you get to the bottom, you know exactly what the reason was. That way you can probably understand how to solve it, number one. And or you can make the concerned person see that where the things lacked and what was the problem, like, you know. So this is important. So that means um, conduct reviews, periodic reviews of all the strategy implementation, and find out the reasons for delay, and then develop action plans. I mean, after finding out delays, then you have to start uh, uh, developing the action plan to overcome the bottlenecks. And always, which helps is that past events become the learning experience, and you can always improve the system and policies also if you think that they are somewhere coming as a bottleneck. So this is fourth. Of course, as a leader, you have to motivate people, and we talked a lot about the motivation earlier in the thing. So but important thing is make people feel valued. As a leader in your team, if you make people feel that they are valued in the team, that is quite motivating. That means you listen to them, you you listen to their suggestions, for example. I mean, I'm not saying that all the suggestions of the people you should accept, but at least listen to them. Involve them in decision making. People love to be part of the decision making. So if you involve them in the decision making, they own up the decisions. And once they own up the decisions, they go wholeheartedly in implementing those decisions. So it's important that you involve them while you're making decisions. I've seen some very good managers, good implementers. They have made up their mind that this is the decision which they will take. but they don't announce the decision straight away. They discuss it in their team and let that decision come out in some way or other from the people, and then he will readily accept it as if he didn't think of it, somebody else thought of that, and then he will say, okay, let's go ahead on this. And what happens in the process, the people who have been involved in that decision making, they feel that they are the owners, and they really implement this. So it's important. It's an important thing that you involve them, and that motivates people really. Clear, clearly communicate expectations and give them autonomy. And people love to have autonomy. They don't want to be all the time spoon fed, So give them autonomy, give them some elbow room and to take decisions and contribute. Another thing which is very important in motivating is celebrate the achievements, small wins which team gets. Each small win also celebrate in some way, either in the for the individual victory or the group victory or the company success. And make celebrations as a habit, and that makes the winning as a habit. Celebration every time something good happens, you celebrate. I mean, not necessarily that you spend a lot of money on it, but then there are number of ways to celebrate. But then it is important to these things. Number 5 role is personally lead the strategic execution change process. Whenever you are implementing a strategy, there will be occasions when you have to change strategy also. Change or let's say tweak the strategy, make certain adjustments, and only you can do it. But then be ready to make those adjustments, and that's where your decision making ability will come into force, because you should be able to know when I have to make some adjustments or make certain changes, or what changes I have to make, what adjustments I have to make. And that is something, and if you delay, or if you don't do it in time, if you don't, it will hurt your so long-term direction objectives, if it's required to be done, because environment is changing, circumstances change. Not a lot of rivals also have their reactions are much more this thing. Number of unexpected things might happen in the environment, and then you may have to adjust the long-term direction as well as the strategy also. So if that is the case, you can only do it. So be ready, be prepared, and make a right decision. Promoting fresh initiatives to bring internal activities and behavior into better alignment strategy. If new initiatives have taken, you have to start thinking and doing it, making changes to pick up the pace. And similarly in HR and training strategy also, sometimes if it's not meeting the objectives, you may have to make certain changes in your initiatives and your training plan and all that. So be ready to do that. So inspiring and ethical leadership, I'm adding the word ethical because that is something which is part of the values. As somebody said, it is company's value is integrity and ethical. So any business results, if you are meeting by unethical means, it will never bear fruit in the long run. So an inspiring and ethical leadership is always very inspiring. So be an inspiring and ethical leader. I just want to ask you one question. Um, who is the most important person for you in the organization? Most important person for you. I mean, if you're working in an organization and you are somewhere in the total hierarchy, so who is the most important person for you?
Your customer.
Customer, okay. Any other thoughts?
Sir, I believe the employees, because once the employees are satisfied, then they can only deliver the best thing to the customers, and it can help in the overall development and growth of the organization.
But I want to know only one person. who is the most
Sir,
important.
as an
Employees are,
individual,
there are
as a
1,000 employees, so that they can't be most important people for you because there's
right,
so
sir.
many
Sir,
of them. Huh?
A manager.
sir, as a
Manager
inspiration,
means
that has to be our manager or boss.
Absolutely. The
Okay.
person whom
absolutely.
we
So
report.
you hit the right. The person you're reporting to is the
Yes,
most
sir.
important person for you. So he's the most, and not your CEO. Even CEO is not most important person for you. For you, it is your immediate boss, the person you are reporting to, the person who gives you tasks, what is to be done, who gives you total task and total. He is the most important person, and
So
I've
reporting
seen.
manager.
Yeah, reporting manager is the most important person for you in the organization, and I have seen. I mean, sometimes if your reporting manager is there for you 10 years, like supposing you worked for a company for 15 years. uh, Nowadays, of course, people don't work that long for in one company, but supposing you work in a company for 15 years and for 10 years you had one reporting manager. you know y- you were also getting promotion, your reporting manager was also getting promotion, but your relationship with him was always the same. If that happens, I have seen the concerned person had started behaving like his boss. He even started using the language like his boss was using. If his boss in his anger used to say idiot, now this guy also started calling in his anger idiot. So that means this guy starts emulating his boss. He's that important. He happens. I'm sure if it's a very bad boss, either he will not last with you or you will not last with him for long. But then normally a good boss, people start emulating, like we start emulating our elders and all that. Similarly, so if your boss is very important for you, you are the most important for your team members, right? Huh? So your boss is important for you because he can motivate you. He takes care of your promotion. He takes care of your salary increase. He takes care of everything. And so he becomes very important, both in terms of benefits and both in terms of challenging assignments. Similarly, when you have your team, you are the most important person for your team members, right? By the same logic. And team members will be taking you as a role model. So then you have to be a role model. You have to ensure that you are a great role model for your team members, as you expect your boss to be a role model for you. So that is where I think they say. So that's where I think if your boss can inspire you very well and really takes you, makes you contribute a lot and makes you and really develops you and really molds you to much higher level positions and all that. So similarly, you are supposed to be the role model. This thing. So inspiration leaders normally there's a uh, I talked to you about Jim Collins, who wrote the book Good to Great, and that's where he had a team of 20 research associates who were helping him to uh, analyze the situation, because it's a practical things which he
वो उसके साइट्स के नॉर्म्स
good
पढ़ना
to
क्या क्या चेक होगा, क्या कोरोना टेस्ट करके ही जाने दे रहा है, ऐसे क्या है?
इतना टाइम नहीं है,
kindly please
प्रॉब्लम हो जाएगी
mute
अभी
your
कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं होगी, अभी 13 सीट्स हैं.
please mute it.
मुझे है नहीं.
Yeah. So Jim Collins, when he wrote that book, he got a
Right.
study done by some associates, and he
No.
said that he told his associates that, okay, uh, uh, give me a list of companies which were not doing very well in the beginning, and they converted to a high performing organizations after a new CEO came. And his research associates gave him 13 examples of companies where the companies were not doing very well in the first 10 years. Then in the next 10 years, they did extremely well. Then his idea was, Jim Collins' idea was that I will try and interview those CEOs who were there at that point of time, that how they converted the non-performing organization to performing organization. And when he interviewed all these people, he wanted to come out with some common attributes of these CEOs in order to develop a mantra for how a company can become from good to great. So when he interviewed these people, he found two common things in all these inspirational leaders. Two common things was, number one was that they were extremely humble. And second thing was, there was a very high level of determination, professional determination. So personality wise, they are humble people. And as far as determination was concerned, they will not care about anything, their objective, their target, whatever they want to do. So inspirational leaders, he says, give credit to outside factors when things go well. I mean, they're so humble, they will not take the credit of anything happening in the organization very well. They will give credit to their team members or any other factors. They will not take the. And second thing is, whenever things do not go very well, then they take full responsibility. So whenever things will go wrong, so that means this is the window and the mirror. When things are going well, they go to the window and see that who I can give credit to. He will look for somebody or some factors where he give. And when things go wrong, he'll look at the mirror and say, okay, you are responsible for this wrong thing happening. Okay. So, I mean, that is the kind of humility which these people have. But in, that is one aspect. And the second thing is they are extremely determined, very high passionate to achieve their own. So idea is that you can uh, this is so all these seven these things are the common steps whenever you want to execute any strategy very well. Okay, so this is where I will say. Otherwise, all the contextual or specific factors which are required to be taken care of, that will be different from each strategy. Business strategy will have its own, HR its own, and the training its own. So any question? I think we do not seem to have time right now for the talent strategy, but I promise you that in the seventh session, which is going to be the last session of this course, I will wrap up and take questions and also cover, and I will definitely find time, or maybe I can start with this talent strategy, which I'll talk in brief. Uh, Brief means I'll spend about half an hour or so at least on this thing. So uh, today it was not possible. I will definitely do. I will now in the remaining time, I'd like to take some questions regarding implementation or anything else. But I would like to request you that please uh, just browse through the total all the 6 sessions. Identify some points which you need some clarification, some more inputs, and ask me those questions in the next session, which is primarily a wrap up, in the sense that I will just briefly touch upon some key points of the 6 sessions. I will start with the talent strategy, then I'll this thing, and then I'll have enough time to answer the questions which you may have. Okay, so this is how I plan to do it, my last session. But any questions so far?
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So anyway, think of whatever clarification you want to have. If not today, uh, it doesn't come to your mind, but then jot it down and ask me next session. Okay. So shall I? Good. You're most welcome.